Mm, mm. A big warm welcome back to Jungle Hip. Donnie, good to see you, Donnie. Hope you're feeling better, brother. We have got Jason in their first paranormal. Yes, indeed. St. Marionette, Stephanie, Terry, Craig, Cassie. First and foremost today was Malaya. Yes, Malaya was first in today. Congrats to you. We had ZX, Terry, St. Marionette, Connie, Carol. Wow, good to see you all, and we will be chilling out in just a moment. There we go. There we go. We are in. We are here. I think we're just about here anyway. But it's good to see you all. I took a day off the live stream yesterday. Feeling better today. And of course, we've got Nano Girl on the show later on tonight. So that is always going to be a buzz. We'll take a look at that in just a moment. Nano has put together, as usual, some brilliant presentation slides that you can use during the show, or you can just look at them. You can browse them at your leisure for your own research purposes, either today, tomorrow, or way into the future, because I've got them over at the website. We're going to talk a little bit about UFOs. We're going to talk a bit about an upcoming show that I'm hoping to put together. We're going to be taking a look at alien creatures a lot closer to home. And to round it all off, before we go and get Nano Girl, we have got a Lady in Black story. Yes, indeed. Can't be a bit of woo. A bit of good woo with a lady in black. Yes. It's going to be a good one. Nano should be a good show. Will she be doing it by candlelight? No, she won't. Jason, just to inform you there. Donnie, I hope you're feeling better, brother. I really, really do. I've been where you are right now, and there's a lot of changes take place in one's life when health matters take precedence. And I really do. My heart goes out to you, bro. My heart goes out to you, and sending lots of good vibes and energies your way. That's all I can say, dude. But it's great to see you back, and I hope you're taking it easy. And that's what we do here on the pre-show stream. We take it nice and easy. So to get ourselves going, we're going to take a little look-see at what's going to be on the show later today. And if I take you over here, we have got the Nano Girl page on kevbakershow.com. All you got to do to get there is go to kevbakershow.com/Nano Girl. Only 2 heart attacks, says Donnie. You see, only 2. It's not a problem. Not a problem to Donnie. Just kind of knocked him out of stride, but he's raring to go again. Proper Australian man, ready for it. Love it. So on here, if you come on over here, you'll see we've got the links for the last show, the show before that. And if we click into this here, we get taken to slide number 1. So that's all you need to do if you want to follow along with some of the slides that Nano's put together over the past fortnight. But we often laugh, we often joke that because we get way into the conversation, and I'll take the blame for this, we really rarely actually make our way through all of the slides. And that's why I encourage everyone to check them out in your own time, because this can be a good kind of casual way to chill out, have a cup of coffee, flick through what Nano's been looking at, and if anything takes your fancy, then hopefully it will encourage you to go and dig deeper. Because that's what it's all about, folks. It's about you doing your research. It's about you making your own mind up. This isn't about me coming along and massaging anyone's preconceived ideas or confirming your biases, because there's a lot of that going on right now. A lot of it going on. In fact, most people aren't actually interested in truth. They merely want somebody to validate the claims that they have started to believe. And when you get into a mindset where anything you're told has to be wrong, then that is a very, very dangerous default position to be in, because anything after that could be considered confirmation bias. You've already made your mind up if you decided everything's wrong, right? So try not to fall into that trap, ladies and gentlemen. Take it from somebody that's been there. I have been there. So this isn't I'm better than all of you lot type statement. It's don't fall for the same mistakes that I've made in the past. It's great to keep an open mind, but not to the point where you disbelieve everything. Okay? Okay, so that said, that'll be today's show with the Nano Girl. And we're going to be talking, to begin with here, about the conversation we were having with Ben Emlyn Jones last night. It's going to be UFOs, it's going to be UAPs. Not really going to be talking too much at length about any new news that's come out. We've got a little video to take a look at. But what we will be talking about is hopefully a show that I want to put together. Now, last night, if you were over listening to the Kev Baker show on tfrlive.com, you'd have heard me and Ben talking about the Pentic UFO incident which occurred in Wales. Okay, now we spoke at length about that, and I can tell you that today Ben has put me in touch with the people that are at the very centre of what, in my opinion, has to be not only one of the most controversial, but the most fascinating UFO incidents to take place in the UK since, I would say, 1980 and the Rendlesham Forest incident. Now, if you missed that show last night, don't worry. You know me, I've always got you covered somehow. It's up on the bigger KBS channel where we upload the shows, the videos. You can find that right here on YouTube. It's on there today. And last night on the show, Ben got into the subject, and I got into the subject of the latest UFO video that's been released by the Pentagon. And I was thinking, well, it's okay doing it in the underground garage or the KBS vault or whatever you want to call this place. But this UFO that we're going to be talking about, or should I say UAP, it's filmed from a naval vessel. And not only that, it splashes down. It goes into the ocean. And of course, on the Kev Baker Show channel, most days, I was going to say sometimes, but most days, we cast off the anchor and we set sail for somewhere where I called Speculation Island, right? So we've got stories about UFOs in the ocean. You've got an audience who are used to going to Speculation Island. Well, I think it's only natural then that we come over here and we do this one by moonlight. Yes, and here is our the sea of tranquility before you arrive on the shores of Speculation Island. Yes, okay, I've been playing about on Photoshop. We've even got a bit of a kind of aurora borealis effect going on in the background. Are you liking that? I'm liking that. But yes, we're going to get into some UFOs, UAPs, whatever you want to call them, right here, right now. So there's the show I was talking about last night with Ben. I'll drop the link for that at the end of the show. I don't want you going yet. I don't want you leaving me here live to go and watch that banging show that was on last night. No, that wouldn't be good. That wouldn't be good drills at all. So during last night's show, we talked about this. New US Navy UFO footage reportedly leaked. Now, We had the Pentagon confirming a grainy night vision UFO video that alleged to show a mysterious triangle in the sky. But I think we, or at least in my opinion, I can't speak for anyone out there, and Ben agreed with me last night, independent of anything I had to say, that there's a lot wrong with that video that the Pentagon came out and confirmed. Yes, it is a video. Now, they didn't come out and confirm it's an alien spaceship. They just confirmed that the video that Jeremy Corbell released was something that they at one time had in their possession. Okay? But this one here, this is a lot more interesting, in my opinion. And it says a previously unseen video of an unidentified object filmed by the US Navy has recently emerged online. Now obtained and published by documentary filmmaker Jeremy Corbell, the new Tom DeLonge, in my humble opinion. And by that I mean, from an intelligence community standpoint, they call these type of people assets, or another word for it is useful idiot. I don't know if Jeremy Corbell realizes he's been used at the moment. I know if I had the kind of characters coming to me that are going to Jeremy Corbell and they were giving me videos, I'd probably fall for it as well. I'd be thinking, yes, I have become the chosen one for disclosure. But what type of disclosure? What is all of this building up to, ladies and gents? What are we about to be told? So we're going to take a little look at this new video right here. Turn it down a little bit because there's not really anything. You can hear some of the radio communications in the background as this goes on, so I'll shut up.
Break Omaha, pick me kid, Rocco Peralta, passability to launch Hilo ASAP.
Splashing and bearing rain.
Sure. You got 2 minutes, 30 knots.
Keep going, bro.
Let's go down. You're making 10, so we can probably bring that 35 relative. Sir.
Yeah, I bring it down.
We got a lot of white water out there, some 6-foot swells.
Whoa, it's getting close.
Yeah, we have 31 knots sustained wind, topside, gust of 40.
Whoa, splashed. Splashed. Mark bearing and range.
Splash, splash, splash. Yes, all of this UFO, all of this UAP kind of news is definitely creating waves. Pardon the pun. I don't know what to make of this one yet. I'm remaining in observation mode. I'm trying not to make any determination on anything just yet, because I think we're missing a couple of important pieces. And by that, I mean, I think we are in the middle of some kind of operation. We are being prepared for something. And I think I am going to wait until after the report goes to Congress to really try and figure out further what may or may not be going on here. Now, you might think that's a really kind of wishy-washy way of getting out, of giving my opinions. I think this is absolutely fascinating. Absolutely fascinating, but we need to put it together with everything else, everyone else that's concerned with all of this disclosure as well, and we need to see what's going on the whole, okay? And for me, I don't think there's any question that there are vehicles out there that are coming from other places. Now, whether they're getting here by some kind of propulsion system we don't know about, whether they're interdimensional, or like this one here is actually described as being transmedium, because it obviously functions in the air and then goes down below the ocean surface. Now, does that make it a USO? It's an unidentified submergible object. It's a bit of both, right? But why now? Why are we getting to see this? And we're going to talk about UFOs here for just a moment, because like I say, I am trying to line up a show with a couple of people that were privy to this encounter here. The strange night in a Welsh field involving huge UFO lights, explosions, and military planes. Now, I want to give a big shout out to my friend, Ben Emlyn Jones, who has put me in touch with Now, this is a documentary called The Pentich UFO Incident. It came out on the 3rd of May. It's had over 250,000 views so far. It's a very well put together documentary, and in it, we get to meet this lady right here. Now, this is Kaz Jones. I think it's Kaz Jones, if I can remember off the top. Kaz Clark, sorry. The other one is Gary Jones. This is Kaz Clark. Now, I'm in a group chat with both Kaz and one of the leading researchers into this actual case called Gary. And he's actually been the one that's obtained several Freedom of Information requests on this topic. The Pentich UFO incident, I'm going to give you a bit of the story in a moment. It could possibly be, like I said at the start of this video, one of the more fascinating, one of the most in-depth, and one of the most intriguing UFO encounters, maybe not even to take place just in the UK, but around the world, because it involves military, it involves multiple witnesses, and it involves some kind of cover-up. There can be no other word for it, a cover-up operation in the days and weeks following this event. Ben talked about last night how he had received an anonymous phone call before he went to talk at a conference over in Denmark. And I remember when Ben was going over to talk at this conference, and the subject matter of his conference was the Pentich UFO incident. And just before he left, he got this strange phone call. Hello? And it was an anonymous voice telling Ben he needs to stop talking to this lady here, Kaz Clark, about the Pentich UFO incident. Now, it could be anyone. It could be Joe Bloggs playing a trick on Ben. It could be somebody trying to add to the whole story and phoning Ben up, knowing that he's going to go on to talk about this. Or it could genuinely be like some kind of, dare I say it, Men in Black type covering up of all of the information around this. Now, there's something else about Wales that maybe makes it unique in a sense, and it's the landscape. And being a soldier, I can tell you that I spent way too much time down in Wales, and all for the wrong reasons, because it was in the military. We were out there on exercise a lot of the time, and the Brecon Beacons, there's a lot of mountains down there in Wales. Some people outside of the UK may be surprised to find out. And I think that's really interesting for a number of reasons. Mainly interesting because we've talked about mountains and stargates in the same breath many times before. And it's not just something that we've made up off the top of our head. We're looking back historically. In fact, we're going back to ancient times. And I've thought of Nace, our good friend, telling us about the Paleo-American belief that mountains can be natural stargates. We've talked to our friends from down in Australia, the Aboriginal people, the Paleo-Australians, if you will. And we've talked about mountains and stargates. And could it be that Wales in itself, with its mountainous regions, I'm thinking Snowdon here off the top of my head, but could it be that we're also looking at some kind of natural portal / stargate / language that we have yet to determine? And there's something going on in that position in Wales, or in that geographical location. So we go back to 2016, first of all. We'll take a little look at this story, some of the actual headlines that were surrounding it. And it says, a cold winter's night in South Wales back in February of 2016 was anything but an ordinary one in a Welsh town, some say. In a scene worthy of an episode of The X-Files, multiple witnesses reported seeing a huge UFO and other lights, along with military planes, helicopters, a chase, explosions, shaken buildings, damaged trees, and wreckage in Pentich. Now, it doesn't include their roadblocks set up around the location, closing down all the major highways and thoroughfares that would have taken anyone close to this kind of location while it was ongoing. Like I said, we've had some of the witnesses around this case have had what you would call harassment, or at least interference going on. Okay, it's got everything to make this a case that we should all be talking about, but not many people are, and that intrigues me, really intrigues me. So it says the activity was explained by the authorities as an armed forces exercise known as Chameleon, but many still believe it was something out of this world, claiming to have spotted lights or unidentified lights which did not conform to the normal idea of a military aircraft. In fact, it echoes one of the most famous alleged UFO incidents of all time at a ranch in Roswell, New Mexico, when the US military is claimed to have captured a crashed flying saucer. And the military has always said it was simply a conventional weather balloon. Well, okay. So back to the Pentagon, it says, recalling the events of that day more than 2 years ago. Now, this story was 2018. Kaz Clark said she could categorically state it was no exercise. And I urge everyone to check out this actual video, the documentary about the Pentagon UFO. And if I put it back here, this is what Kaz and somebody else actually witnessed when they went down to take a look at what was going on. It started off with just 3 lights, and then eventually these lights came on, and then there was green orbs or a green light seen as well. This thing was massive. Absolutely massive, folks. So it goes on to say here, I will take a lie detector anywhere for anyone, but what I witnessed will stay with me for the rest of my life. And it turns out that Kaz has actually taken not one, but several lie detector tests, and everything that she actually talks about from that night comes back as being genuine. She passes. Now, I know that lie detector tests are not foolproof, and you can't even use the evidence gained from them in a court of law. However, that said, it still shows how strongly, and in this instance, one of the witnesses stands by the case that she made. I think that's really important. It says, what is more, the military knew they were coming and had a spotter plane in the air for 2 days waiting for the event. When it came, 4 planes chased the green object, whilst the spotter plane circled approximately 6 red oval objects, which formed a pyramid shape. Several red spheres hovered silently above the fields until the helicopters came. So this is a really significant one. Really, really significant case. It's got everything, like I say, to make it one of the most important cases that's happened in the UK. And that's why I'm determined to get on Kaz, that we see just in here, and the other researcher, Gary Jones. Now, he's the person that's done a lot of the Freedom of Information requests. He's been back to the actual area in question. And what's interesting is that when they were back in the region and they were doing testing, it turned out that there is actually readings way above normal when it comes to radiation and microwave background kind of signal. Now, Armand in the chat room is talking about an episode of Missing Time as well that Kaz actually suffered from. So this is another of the reasons I want to get Kaz on to tell her own story in her own words. I also want to get Gary there, and I would love maybe even to get Ben involved as well, because I really want to make an effort to try and help these people get more exposure onto what has to be regarded as a very, very, if nothing else, folks, even if you're not into this whole scene, this is a very interesting story that's got a lot going on. It definitely, what we've been told, i.e. it was a military exercise, and from somebody that's been on military manoeuvres in Wales, it doesn't ring true to me, but I wasn't there. Okay, so all I can possibly, hopefully do is provide all of you with the very best information. And I think to get that, we have to try and get Kaz, we have to try and get Gary, and we have to try as hard as we can, as it's going to be, to try and get to the bottom of this. To this day, the area, the field in which this thing came down, they call it the bald patch. Nothing grows there. Kaz at the time, when she was filming in the area, just after the event, it snowed on that one location, but nowhere else, and it was a weird type of snow. Now, I can tell you from my time in Wales, it often snows there, but it's not usually confined to one area, and it's just normal snow, not the kind of snow that Kaz was describing. So this is definitely one that we're going to follow up in the near future. I think, like I say, I think I've said it probably to the point of being redundant now, that this for me has to be up there with Rendlesham. In fact, it may even surpass Rendlesham as one of the most intriguing UFO cases to have ever happened here on UK soil. So with that said, let me remind people that on Sundays around here, we have members only Sundays. Yes, indeed. So if you want to be a part of that, I would love for you to become a member of the channel, but you don't need to. All you got to do is click the big shiny join button down below, and that will open up all of the emojis, all of the Sunday streams, and a whole lot more. And I'm going to be back with you in just a moment. We've got more coming on today's pre-show stream. And then it's Nano Girl. Oh, yes. Big shout out to Bruce Wayne. Bruce, thank you for your donation at the end of one of our last streams. Very much appreciated, brother. It come in too late for me to thank you. So thank you very much, bro. So yes, the Pentic UFO incident. Very, very intriguing. And like I say, I have got a bee under my bonnet. And I want to try and find out as much as we can about, like I say, one of the more interesting UFO stories you're ever going to come across. And some of you might be thinking, well, you know, Kev, it's a bit of a stretch to go from that to Wales being some kind of interdimensional Stargate, right? Or is it? Or is it? Could it be that there are historic accounts, and we don't even have to go that far, for UFO activity in and around the country of Wales? Well, what if I was to tell you that maybe Pentic isn't even maybe the most infamous UFO story to come from Wales? And it's not a massive country as Wales. No. As far as geographical kind of coverage goes, it really isn't that significant at all. Same as Scotland, when you compare it to the landmass of, say, somewhere like the US. For a place that's so small, it seems to attract the biggest kind of UFO attention. And we're going to go back to 1974, just briefly, if you may. Well, you're going to have to, because that's where I'm taking us before we get into a lady in black story and alien creatures that don't come from outer space. They're here. They're already all around us, folks. It's just we choose not to see them. But more of that in a moment. Let us go back to our very stunning, very stunning. I mean, look, we're just all kind of bobbing about there, waiting until we get to Speculation Island. There's a UFO watching us. It's brilliant, right? Trust me. So it says new claims here. And this is a story from 2018 as well. I found it while I was looking at the Pentax story we looked at. New claims made about what really happened in a notorious 1974 Welsh UFO crash landing mystery. Yeah, before I was even a twinkle in my mammy's eye, 1974. If we go over here, it's been called the Welsh Roswell. Well, I think we need to call the Pentich incident the UK's Roswell Mark II. A cold January night in 1974, when the ground shook and bright lights appeared in the sky above the Berwyn Mountains. Now, an incident which has remained shrouded in mystery ever since. Many explanations have been given for what went on in that part of North Wales that evening, from meteor shower and earthquake to downed plane and even lamp-wielding poachers on a hillside. Yes, indeed, but for many, the belief that a UFO crashed high above Bala Lake, its alien inhabitants quickly spirited away in a military cover-up, has proved hard to shake. Now, when you go back to the actual case from 2016, when you watch the documentary and you put everything together, it actually makes it sound, or you're left to wonder if there was some kind of altercation between the military and the inhabitants of the craft. In fact, when you start closing down roads, it's easy to think, well, they just didn't want people into the area. But what about if they didn't want anything unwanted leaving the area also? Just something to keep in mind. And if we come back to this one here, it says, according to North Wales Live, that belief has resurfaced again following a fresh appeal for information earlier this year by a researcher looking to make a documentary about the phenomena for American TV. So North Yorkshire UFO investigator Russ Kellett has been researching the Berwyn Mountains enigma for 25 years and has received a further 4 extraordinary claims by people from, in and around the affected villages of Llandurfel and Llanrydrel. Llanrydrel. Yeah, something like that. Anyway. That's Welsh names, folks. ZX is going to be absolutely laughing in the chat room at me trying to pronounce this. Who say that they were either close to the incident or knew officials involved. One woman who said she lived nearby told Kellett her dad had worked for the MOD, the Ministry of Defence, and on that night she heard an enormous bang, the tremor from which measured 3.5 on the Richter scale, and that she and her brother were told to go back to bed. Later in the evening, she could hear people talking in the house about making calls, and when she looked out of the window, she saw something large being loaded onto the back of a truck, although she did not know what it was. She claimed there were a lot of soldiers in the area. Years later, her dad told her a Russian ship in the Irish Sea had fired a missile in the wrong direction and hit something which came down and was taken away by the military. So meanwhile, retired nurse Pat Evans, who believes an aircraft had crashed, drove to the site and saw a pulsating orange and red glow on the hillside and other lights. In addition, one ex-military man recalled how he'd been working in a team at the end of the A5 and claimed something catastrophic had gone wrong with an underground base that was not manned by people of this world. Boom. Could we be looking at And we often confine the conversation when it comes to this topic or this subject matter to the US. And we can think of people like Phil Schneider, who was a whistleblower back in the day, an engineer, who talked about his time working on building, constructing, and his time in deep underground military bases. Now, I've already told you that the military are always doing something in Wales above ground, but could we be looking at a deep underground military base in and around, or more to be more precise, under Wales? Now, I know it sounds ridiculous. I'm not claiming there is. But perhaps, these mountains being stargates or entrances or doorways or whatever way you want to put it, perhaps there's more to this than meets the eye. Perhaps there's far more to this than meets the eye. It talks there about a base that's manned by not entities from this world. And it's very hard to kind of build a case for that because there's no real hard, tangible evidence to back that up. But I think we can talk in general terms about governments, militaries, and the use of deep underground military bases. Could it be, like I say, that in Wales or under Wales, there's something very, very significant going on? I don't know. All of these kind of things are definitely something that I would like to put to Gary Jones and Kaz Clark. So it's a big shout out to both of them. If you do end up seeing this, I would love for you both to come on the show. Let me check to see if there's been any word back from these people yet. No, they've seen the messages from Ben and I. So hopefully, in the very near future, I'll be able to announce to you that we'll be doing a show on, like I say, something that has got the potential to be one of the most fascinating UFO cases in the UK. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a quick drink of coffee, and then we're going to come back and we're going to take a look at aliens, proper aliens, only not from another world. They're actually from right here on Mother Earth. So stay with me, folks. We will be back in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. Remember to hit like, hit share, but only if you care. Oh, I know that's dead corny, it's dead cheesy, but I'll be back in just a moment and we will take a look at some strange alien creatures. Okay. So, I promised you something, air quotes, alien. And I've got you covered. You're thinking there's nothing alien there, Kev? I know, not yet. But we're about to see is something that certainly looks alien. Only problem is, it's from right here on planet Earth. Take a look at this thing. Whew! See, you thought I was going full alien autopsy at Roswell, didn't you? No. Sometimes, in my opinion, and it's just my opinion, some of the creatures that dwell here on the planet in particular, sea life, ocean life, it's as close to or as far removed from anything that we know here on this planet and as close to something alien that probably most of us could ever even imagine. Take a look at this thing right here. And this is actually called, try and guess the name of this. Let's see if anyone can actually guess the name of this. I want to call it an entity. I'm very hesitant to call it any form of fish or sea life. However, an anglerfish, no, not an anglerfish, they're saying football fish. A monstrous looking fish normally found thousands of feet deep in the ocean, washed up on a California beach. An unusual fish with the teeth as sharp as glass and a body shaped like a football. An American football. Most footballs in this part of the world are round, ladies and gentlemen, just saying. Was washed ashore on a California beach this week, and this was 6 days ago. Okay, the black-coloured creature with its gaping mouth laid on the sand on the shore of Crystal Cove State Park's Marine Protected Area. Oh, try spitting that out in Laguna Beach last Friday. Now, the park shared images of the fish on social media. Let's see if we can tell a little look-see at this here. Doesn't actually... There we go. Wowzers. So if we take a look at that, and we come across here. Now, it's actually more round than I had actually initially thought, but look at that thing. That is utterly terrifying, no? No? A very profound bottom jaw there as well. It's got a bit of a kind of mismatch here. That's crazy looking. Look at the state of that thing. Like I say, folks, in my opinion, some of the things that you find in the sea are utterly beyond bizarre. They're terrifying in many cases. They truly are. But if we come back here, it says to see an actual... Oh, they're calling it an anglerfish, right? It says they've posted it on social media and identified it as being most likely the Pacific football fish. So I'm going to actually Google that so we can get some photographs of that up in a moment. To see an anglerfish or an actual anglerfish intact is very rare, and it is unknown how or why the fish ended up on the shore. So the Pacific football fish is one of more than 200 species of anglerfish. So anyone who went for anglerfish in the chat room, technically I'm going to give you a pass. You were right, because I wouldn't expect anyone to know that there are 200 variations of said anglerfish. And it goes on to say it's normally found in the dark depths of the oceans. Thank goodness, everyone's saying. You don't want to meet one of them coming down the street, right? Remember we had that story? Where was it? There was a story about a guy. Fish for a walk. Imagine if you teamed this thing up. You're walking down the road with your fish. Only your fish starts to look a little bit like that. That's a terrifying idea. And for anyone that may have missed this, I'm not even winding people up. This is a real thing. A Japanese firm is developing a portable container that enables you to take your pet fish for a walk. Yeah, because like fish owners have been struggling for like eons now. Eons. Trying to figure out why they're being persecuted against. You know, why is it one pet owner, say a dog owner, can go and walk their pet proudly, but nobody had figured out a way to let the humble fish owner take their fish, literally or not so literally, out of water around. Who wants to take their fish for a walk? I've got no idea. If you meet anyone like that, please don't recommend my channel to them, because there's a good chance I'm probably not going to get on with them. Probably not. But anyhow, if we come back to this story, it says due to the creature's size and its protruding stalk on the top of its head, the California State Parks said this is a female. Hey, look, listen. Look, I'm just being honest, but that looks like that female has fallen off the top of the marine version of the ugly tree and smacked every marine branch on the way down until it ended up looking like that. I'm just saying, I know you shouldn't ugly shame anyone, but it's a fish, ladies and gentlemen. It's a fish. I would like to think that no fish can comprehend the ugly shaming that's going on right now with this fish. But who knows? Who knows? So if we come over here, we might be able to take another couple of looks. A little look-sees at the Pacific. The Pacific football fish. There's an example of the football fish before it's dried up and made its way onto land for whatever startling, scary, terrifying reason. Let's see what other ones we've got. Oh boy. It's almost like that this thing that protrudes off its head. It's like, is that almost like bait? Is it trying to bait things in? Somebody needs to tell it. You need to cover up that big ugly face just in the background of your little bait. It's a very ineffective way of going fishing if you're a fish, I would say. What's this thing here? This is another example of a Pacific football fish. It just doesn't look very fish-like to me. Holy shamoly, look at this thing. Holy shamoly, man. It's not a good look. It's not a good look, but I tell you what it does do. It gets us in the weird and creepy kind of mode that we need to be in for our final story of today, which is going to come in just a moment. And we're going to be going into the weird and wacky world of the Lady in Black. Wahaha.
Generating and generating.
Wow, we were up to 68, 70 odd people in there for a moment. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is where we like to come and hang out before the show. And talking of the show, we are going to have Nano Girl over on KBS in just over half an hour's time, or just under half an hour's time from now. Today we're going to be talking about following your North Star. So you don't want to miss that, okay? Nano is going to knock it out the park. How can I say that? Because Nano always knocks it out of the park. Yes. So next up, our little bit of woo for today. It comes from the Mysterious Universe. Not from Nick Redfern, unfortunately. This time it comes from Brent Swanser. And we're going to talk about the Charfield rail crash, mysterious unidentified kids, and the woman in black. So sit tight, turn down the lights if you're in the UK or to the east of the UK. It's getting to that time of day now, that time of night, where something creepy, something woo is going to go down very well. If you're over in America, it's still way too early in the day to get your total 100% woo mojo on right now. I get that. However, this has got everything that should make it a very good piece of woo before all of us go and get Nano Girl for today's big KBS show, episode 1502. Yes, indeed. Don't worry, folks. In a couple of days, and I'll forget the 1500 landmark. I'll stop talking about numbers. And talking of numbers, though, on October 13th, 1928. So we are going back nearly 100 years. Is it just me because I'm starting to get a bit older now that when you hear about things like 1928, actually you think to yourself, well, it wasn't that long ago, right? But when I was like a young guy in the 1980s, if somebody had mentioned even World War II or 1940s, that seemed like something from the ancient past. I think it's to do with my age. So a train carrying 60 passengers set out from Leeds in North England on its way to Bristol on a routine night run through rural countryside. Now, things were going very smoothly at first, and most people comfortably fell asleep in their seats as the trains chugged along towards its destination. Now, around 4:28 a.m., most of the passengers were fast asleep as the train approached a railway station in the quiet village of Charfield, Gloucestershire, which it was scheduled to fly right on past. And although the weather was described as foggy, the visibility had been deemed good enough that a special foggy weather signalman was not required. Now, upon approach, it was totally routine, and none of the sleeping passengers on the train or crew would have had any idea of the catastrophe that was approaching. Now, this would be the beginning of an unsolved mystery featuring disaster, mysterious people, and a woman in black, and ghosts. All of the ingredients needed to make this a very good way to round out the stream with a good bit of woo, right? But it's not the end of KBS, so don't go anywhere after this, because remember, well, you do need to go somewhere. You need to go to TFR, or you need to come to Discord to hear the show. Okay, and Nano Girl is tuned in live right now, so a big shout out to Nano. It says at the Charfield station, a 51 wagon freight train had been stopped on the same track and was in the process of shunting backwards into a siding off the main track. Now, this would have normally not been a problem, and indeed it was fully scheduled stop for the freight train and normal procedure. But the train from Leeds was a full minute ahead of schedule. The signalman at the station on duty at the time realised this and turned the signal for the station to red. This was a completely routine procedure and should have caused the Leeds train to stop and wait for the green light, averting disaster, but it did not halt, indeed continuing on its way and blowing past a series of further red lights at a speed of 60 miles per hour. Now, if the freight train had fully backed off the track and the Leeds train had arrived a minute later as scheduled, it would have just continued on to its destination where the passengers would go on with their lives. As a matter of fact, the freight train needed only about 10 more seconds before it was fully out of the way, but this was not meant to be. As the Leeds train entered the station, the freight train was still partly on the track, and there was a full-speed collision that sent the Leeds train to go launching off the track to careen into yet another empty train that was parked on an adjacent track. To make matters worse, gas cylinders hanging beneath the train ignited to immerse it in a ball of fire as it went sliding to a stop on its side, with two of the cars telescoped together and wedged under the nearby bridge. Now, the impact had been so great that some of the passengers had been completely propelled from the train, and the fire quickly rampaged through the cars to fill air with a thick, choking smoke. Now, when villagers from around the station arrived at the chaotic scene to assist, the horrific scene of burning wreckage and carnage awaited them, with author Alan Hamilton saying of it all, "When the impact happened, all the connections to the gas tanks ruptured, and what you effectively got was a bomb. All it took was sparks from the collision, maybe fires from the engine, and the whole thing went up. The passengers at the front of the train were burnt beyond recognition. One was thrown out of the coach, over the bridge, and into the road. He actually passed in hospital. And you can imagine when the rescuers began to search the wreckage, they found only charred remnants. Some people described flames as high as 30 or 40 feet because of the gas canisters. Now, it was horrible. A lot of people were badly burned beyond recognition, and the local pub, was used as a hospital. And they had large tables and lots of space, and also brandy for medical use. So locals who had gathered and survivors of the crash itself would give accounts from the dire scene like something out of a horror movie. Rescuers told of people with their arms and legs trapped in the twisted wreckage who had begged them to amputate the limbs to save them, and other heavily burned victims who had asked to be put out of their misery. One passenger who managed to make it out had come there with his wife and sister, and one of them would not get out. He gave a chilling account of what happened. He says, I fell into a mass of struggling people. I told my wife to jump, and she did, but my sister was trapped from the waist down, and it was as if she was held in a vice. I heard the cries of trapped women in the next compartment and was able to free them. My sister was crying, please free me. And I stuck at it until the flames were only 2 to 3 feet away, and I had to leave her to pass. Now, in the end, 16 passengers didn't make it home in that nightmare crash, or from that nightmare crash. Most of them so badly charred that they had to be identified by family members who recognised jewellery or items on their person that had not been incinerated. And in the meantime, authorities scrambled to try and figure out just what had happened. The Leeds train was found to be in perfect working order, and conductor Harry Adlington and his fireman Frank Want, who had survived, were both of sound mind. Both men insisted that when they had approached the station, the lights had been green, despite the fact that the signalman said he had turned them to red. These contradictory accounts only furthered the mystery as to how this disaster had happened in the first place, as did the fact that no fog signalman had been put out in such low visibility conditions. Adlington would be found negligent and face manslaughter charges, but the trial ultimately did not proceed, and he was never formally charged. To this day, it's still not certain how the crash happened, but this is not even the strangest mystery surrounding the accident. You see, you thought, where does the woo come in? It's coming. The mysteries continued. Among all of the burned bodies, 14 of them were identified, but 2, oddly, were not. These were the bodies of 2 children, a boy and a girl, aged 5 and 12, who were burned beyond all recognition. Yet no one had come to claim them, and no one ever would. Considering that the crash was all over news headlines nationwide, and how high profile it was seen as very odd that no one would come and claim these 2 children. Who had they been with? Where were their families? What was the relation between them, if any? And wouldn't somebody have realised that they were missing and contact the authorities? Were they runaway orphans, stowaways, who had picked the wrong train to hitch a free ride on? And why didn't anyone come forward? No one knows. So despite efforts to plead with the public to come forward and identify these 2 young mystery victims, nobody ever did. And when they were buried in a common grave in Charfield, they did so nameless, their identities never known. Now, plenty of speculation made the rounds as to who the kids might be, ranging from that they were royalty to conversely homeless, to that they were actually the bodies of 2 small riding jockeys, or even had ventriloquist dummies. Making it all the more bizarre is that starting from 1929, a mysterious woman in a long, flowing black dress and veil obscuring her face began visiting the grave every year on the anniversary of the disaster, and sometimes at other times to leave flowers there. And she did all this way up until the late 1950s or early 60s, never talking to anyone, and only stopping her visits when the media began trying to approach her during her trips to the grave. One local resident called Joe Kloiber would say of this enigmatic woman in black, "All I can tell you is that she was frail, always dressed in black, and came to the grave 2 or 3 times a year. We never saw the face because she had a veil on. The last time I saw her was sometime in the 1950s, and she always arrived in a chauffeur-driven limousine. The car was not black, but I cannot remember what colour. She would put flowers on the grave and pray there. As far as I know, no one ever spoke to her. She was elderly looking all those years ago, so I imagine she's passed now." Some witnesses of her visits would even claim that she was not a person at all, but rather a ghost, with some reporting that she or even her and her car would vanish into thin air when the task was done. Interestingly, there have also even been reports that the ghosts of the kids themselves can sometimes be seen lurking around the area, holding hands as if brother and sister. Who was this mystery woman, and why did she keep visiting the grave? Who were these poor children, and why were they on that train? Since they were never identified and no one ever came to claim them, and because the mystery woman was never even seen clearly, we will probably never have any answers to these questions, dooming it to remain a perplexing mystery, likely to never be solved. So a little bit of woo there, ladies and gents, before I have to jump on the last train, and the last train is arriving at the stop very, very shortly, and that train is on its way to destination Nano Girl, the Kev Baker Show, Speculation Island, you call it what you will. It's going to be an absolute beauty. So I want to thank everyone for tuning in to our little quick impromptu stream today. We had UFOs, we had alien creatures from our own world, and we've even had a little bit of woo. So listen, I don't ask for anything around here, but if you could, please hit like, please hit share, and if you're new to the channel, hit subscribe. I try to come back every day before the main show. I try, because sometimes health means otherwise, but I try to be here every day just to go over some news and woo. It's never anything divisive. It's where we like to have a bit of fun, where we like to chill out. In fact, some people call it a little safe space with its own sanity away from the real crazy world out there. So if that appeals to you and the ghostly hand of Anne comes into the picture, ooh, it's a lady in white. Yes, indeed. That is my cue, ladies and gentlemen. And you know I hate that letter, but it's my cue to get out of here. But I want to thank you all so much for being here. You don't know how much it means to me. And we are seeing the numbers slowly climbing. That's awesome. You're all awesome. And remember, one last thing before I let you go. Keep your mind open. Keep looking for the woo, but not to the point where your brain turns to black goo.
Generating and generating.